Howdy, survivor.
Howdy, neighbor. Is Rekt ready to deal?
I've been expecting you.
Oh, have you? Must be smelling that profit from miles away. What the heck is up with these deadbeats?
Put away your weapon unless you'd like to die.
All right, fine. I'm a little bit edgy here seeing all your friends. Was expecting you to have some help, but this is borderline ridiculous. Anyway, shall we get started?
Yep, what do you want?
Well, let's have a look here. I sent through the plans for the next build phase. The basics are done and laid out, but there are some rough edges. Did you have a look at them yet?
Well, you best do some book learning at Born and Noble, 'cause you're dumber'n dirt.
Hey now. It's just a first rough plan. No need to get all offensive on me, man. Are you going to build this for me or not? I can only front you 10% with a balance upon completion.
I'd go broke with more customers like you.
You'll go broke because you're not doing your job. Give me quality and I'll give you the dukes.
You cheap son of a bitch.
Now hold on with the insults. I offered you 5,000 dukes for the whole phase. All the material. That's what we agreed on.
I'll sell you goods, but if you cross me, you'll meet the wrong end of my 44.
No need for threats. You'll get your dukes when I get my material and my wall built. Now I want the wall and the blades installed sooner rather than later. I really don't think you can trust those workers. They're gonna turn on you one day, mark my words. Okay, I'm gonna be on my way now. I'll check back later with the progress. Gotta go get them dukes to pay you with, but don't you worry, I'll have it before the build is finished.
Watch yourself, stranger. I know some fellers who break legs for coin.
You really gotta stop with that foul mouth and apologize.
Oh, my apologies.
That's much better. No worries.
Just get the fuck out of here.
Sorry, what was that?
You have a great day now.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that.
Man, robbing people's awesome.
What did you just say? Today we're continuing with the Build a Base series, and we're turning our attention to creating a wall defended by electrocuting blade traps. Alright, the blade trap might be powered by electricity, but the electrocution will be done by electric fences. But it's close enough. Don't forget to hit that like button before we go on. A like a day keeps zombies away, really. But let's get to building. The basic design will utilize the basic shapes I introduced in the last wall building, or rather an improved version. A key is to have a corner tower of sorts, where we'll be placing the fences, tripwires, and future upgraders such as dart traps. I'm laying out the basic shape here, which is basically just normal blocks and ramp blocks. If you compare it to the previous tower shape, it's slightly bigger, it's slightly chunkier. This is because of two reasons. The first, and more obvious, is that we need to extend it slightly to place an electric fence further outside to electrocute zombies before they reach the blade trap. That helps prevent them from always running past, even though that can still happen at times. A side effect is that we can now place two fences and cover more area, which is always nice. The second reason is to help with the annoyance of block clipping zombies. At times, their fast movement, if running, or worse, if losing their legs and falling over, causes them to fall into the block. This means that they often start bashing the block behind, which spells doom for fragile blocks you thought were safe behind concrete or even steel walls. In our case, it could take out the tripwire or the electric fences placed behind. While doubling up blocks everywhere would solve it, that's impractical. I normally observe it in more smaller blocks such as poles, sideways ramps, plates, where the zombie is already inside the block location and falling down makes it easier to clip into it. So this design should help, and does away with straight access through ramp blocks. On the side, we'll count out 9 blocks before we reach the second tower, which is designed very similar. The other side is identical to the first. It's 9 blocks and leading into a tower, which is next to the entrance corridor where I'll build another advanced cop trap. If you haven't seen that video, do check it out, being my favorite way of consistently taking out cops before they explode in a small form factor. Doing it this way keeps it symmetrical, being a quarter of the base. I like having a slightly different configuration in my base on the different walls. It avoids it being the same kind of fight regardless of where the zombies come from, so having 4 different ones is pretty fun. But let's get back to the first side and concentrate on that, and whatever we do here will be easily copied over to the second side now. I'm placing down the tripwires and fences like this. I was asked previously as to why I bother with tripwires when electric fences don't need them. And that's true, sort of. If you want to keep them all on at all times, the power draw is not really that huge. With it taking 5 per pole, it's 40 watts for this quadrant. That's not really that too bad. You could link it to a switch and just turn on off as needed. However, partly I don't like to keep things running when I don't need to. Needless waste of energies and gas. Secondly, for this particular build, I need a way to trigger the blade traps. Now I could keep those on always as well, but then we're quickly increasing the power usage. And continual power usage is not something I like to have. I like to think of the zombie apocalypse as having shortages of resources, especially gas, which should require some careful use. Though that's not necessarily the case with 7 Days to Die always. Regardless, if you find yourself with a lot of fuel or solar and batteries and don't mind the noise, feel free to keep everything on all the time. Just wire it without a tripwire or put it on a switch. And now you have to decide what kind of wall you want to have. Do you want to have a solid, semi-solid, pillarless poles, or what have you? While I personally prefer solid walls, the problem with using them is that you can't actually fight the zombies from behind them. You could use arrow slits, but they're very restrictive up close. If you put solid walls, you probably end up fighting the zombies from above, and the zombie AI simply does not work very well then. It just makes them walk towards the player while being wasted by traps, and often stop attacking walls entirely. As we all know, a stealth base is very effective as zombies don't deal very well with players below or above them. So as a compromise, I always like to build where I'm behind fortifications that the zombies will target so that I can fight them. It's not perfect. What I would like to see is a zombie AI change, such as having them enter berserk mode or similar if they can't physically get to a player due to height difference. This would be, say, a double attack rate, double movement speed, with extra block damage, which would target closest blocks within 10 or 15 distance. And that would be as opposed to them just wandering aimlessly underneath the player. That way you could stand above them, but the zombies would do some real damage to any fortifications and hopefully bring it all down if the players take advantage. But in either case, we deal with what we have. I'm going to leave some openings so I can get out to do the blade traps. The design calls for 3 blade traps per side, extended outside the wall. We put down ramps here, leading up to the wall. Why, you may ask? Well, a problem with blade traps hanging down head level is that zombies see them as an obstacle, stop walking and start hitting. Sometimes they do this before even reaching the blades, so they hit the trap but don't get hit by the blades. A ramp helps to minimize this, and it makes them walk up and under and into, hopefully severing their heads in the process. To place the blade trap, we need something to attach it to. You can do this any style you want. I'll just be using these half ramps. On the underside, we're going to place these pillars. Under the pillar, you attach the blade traps. It can be a little bit tricky at times, but you should be able to get them in there. And as you see, that places them at around head level for when you walk up the ramp. So we're going to finish up the wall here, just to close it up. And right outside the poles, in the bottom corners, we'll be putting plates. That's because the fence is on the inside block, so we can't actually use that space. Above it, we'll just place normal concrete blocks. And we'll do that for both sides. Now we get to the wiring, and step by step you first connect the center tripwire. This one goes to the tripwire on the other sides. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to connect because of the distance. Once you have the second tripwire connected, you connect the electric fence next to it, and that one you connect to the electric fence that is next to the first tripwire you had. Again, distance can make it a little bit tricky. And we're going to do the same thing for the innermost tripwire and fences. So we'll connect the center one to the second tripwire that goes to the fence, and then goes to the next fence to close the loop. Hooking up the blade traps is easy. We just attach them to the tripwires, which means that it'll be set up when the outside wire is being tripped. And we'll do that for all 3 of the blade traps. As an added modification, we're going to increase the power duration to ensure that zombies which move up and off the first tripwire are still given time to be executed. I'll set it to 60 seconds, but you can tweak this to your own preference. And as you see, the wall is pretty much complete. So I'm going to go off cam and complete the second wall, doing it the same way as the first one, just so we can get some testing done. Alright, let's test this out. Let's spawn in a few zombies and start with just some of the basic walkers. So we can get their attention here. Walkers generally just walk up to the traps, hit the tripwire, the electric fence, and get beheaded. Pretty easy. You saw they didn't really take much damage of durability. Let's spawn in a bunch of ferals. Let's take 25 and let's get Arlene ferals. Let's get their attention here. You'll see even with 25 of them, the traps make pretty fast work of them. Though the tougher the zombies, the longer it takes and the more damage that traps will take from the effort of killing them. You see here, 25 of them taking about 500, 600. And they do run around a bit. Let's repair it up to full strength. Blade traps do need maintenance. The good thing though is that we fit in 3 blades per side. And even if they're damaged enough to stop spinning, the electric fences will remain. Either way, an active player defense is generally needed, so just repair the blades once in a while, because they can each take out a fair number of zombies. So what about the tougher zombies, whites, radiated feral cops, and so on? Well, let's put them to a test. Let's spawn in a feral white here. See me walk up, and that didn't really take a lot. You see the trap took a little bit of damage, but not that bad. Let's see if we can get a radiated one, which obviously has a lot more hit points, and heal. And you see the blades took a fair bit more damage, but ultimately it will take out even a radiated feral white. If you can move up to us here. I guess it keeps knocking it down. Either way, as you see, the combination of the fence and the blade does a pretty good job of bringing down even radiated whites. And if you have a player behind the fence, targeting them, repairing, that shouldn't be a big issue. And it brings down the time to kill, which saves durability on the blades. Now, what about the radiated feral cops? Obviously, those are one of the toughest mobs you're going to run across in the game. So we can get him to not just spit on us here. Killing them is pretty easy. The problem is doing it before they suicide and explode. Because if they explode, they will be damaging the traps in the walls and even possibly taking out the blades. You saw the blade trap was able to take out a radiated cop, but it took a fair bit of damage by itself. In my experience, the combination of the fence and the blade trap generally takes out the radiated feral cops before they explode, but it's not 100% of the time. So you really should make sure that you're helping them along and repairing the traps as and when they get damaged sufficiently. So let's discuss some alternative placements and why I tend to go the way that I have. I toyed with placing additional blade traps vertically in the ground. Something like this. Right in front of the poles. It sort of works. The big downside though is that they delag the zombies instead of beheading them. So durability of the blades drain a lot faster and for longer. In addition, when depleted or destroyed, it leaves a big hole for the zombies to fall into, which makes them just dig and tunnel under. So why don't you just place them head level or leg level? Well, you can. Problem though is that it exposes the trap to pounding from the zombie, which will see it as an obstacle. And once the trap is gone, you're going to have a gaping hole 3 wide in the wall. A possible adaptation would be to push all these traps out 1 block. What you then could do is to place a sideways wall on the 3rd block, which will then cover the poles. You'll have the horizontal placed one taking out a number of the zombies, but once they reach the poles, you'll have the vertically placed. You will have to figure out how to trigger them, or simply just use a switch and use that as needed. It would extend the killing capabilities, but again, you would need 6 per side as opposed to just 3. But I'll leave that exercise for another time. I really need to go see if I can find someone else to build the next phase of the base. I'm not sure Trader Rekt and his zombies are going to quite pan out. Don't forget to sub for more content, and I'll catch you in my next video.